Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to another week. This is the Live Life Aggressive Show. Sincere Hogan got Mike Mahler on the other side of things, man. On a crazy day. Somebody, as I like to call it, American Horror Story election year. You know, this is the season finale. So yeah.
Well, I mean, if anyone wants to still be talking about the world in a year, it's pretty obvious who to vote for. We either have a liar or a total fucking idiot that'll blow up the world within 30 days of being in office. I mean, it's not a great choice, but it's a pretty obvious choice.
Yeah, it's going to be funny. You know, everybody would like to measure everything by the first 100 days. I'm like, yeah, good luck getting to 100. It's just like,
yeah, that's a big assumption right there.
Exactly. I'm like, yeah, that was cute in all the other elections with the other presidents, but good luck even making it past that probation period. So,
well, I'll tell you one thing. If Trump wins and you like to play the stock market, it's a good time to short the market because the market's going to drop hard tomorrow.
Well, honestly, it's going to drop hard either way. Neither one is good.
I don't think it'll drop as much if Clinton wins, just because she's just considered more stable. She's the same old, but we know what that is, right? So that's predictable. But the market doesn't like unpredictability, and someone like Trump is totally unpredictable.
If you're voting in terms of anything as far as like contractors overseas and business like that, and anything dealing with conflict, then tomorrow would be a good day for you if Clinton wins. As a matter of fact, now that I say that, I know what I'm doing when this call ends. I got to move some things around. You know? As I'm saying, I'm like, wait a minute. This is, what? How come I didn't think about this prior till today? I'm like, oh yeah, I got to make a few moves right quick, man, and move some stocks around. So hey, man,
gold is starting to look pretty good about right now.
Gold is always
gold and silver are starting to look like safe bets right now.
Look, man, as long as we continue to fight wars that we can't win, gold and silver is going to always look great. Okay, anytime there's conflict, and that's the best time to get it. That's the best time to get it. But hey, I'm not giving anybody any investment advice because I am not qualified to do so. That's why you need to go back to the episode with Rohit and learn from an expert about that. Right. So I'm just speaking personally.
I think the biggest problem people make is thinking that it's going to make such a huge difference in their personal life, right? It's like, well, what are you doing in your personal life? You know, your success is your responsibility. It's not the president's responsibility. It's not your local. It's not the governor's responsibility in your states or any local official, city council. It's your responsibility.
And see that right there.
And all these they're going to bring back jobs from overseas. Like those jobs suck. That's why they're overseas. All right, those jobs aren't coming back.
And guess what?
When cars were invented, the horse carriage drivers had to realize, you know what? I need to learn how to drive a car because this is going. Horse carriage is antiquated now. It's always laughing people.
I hate to bust people's bubble, but there's not going to be a wall because a lot of those people come over doing jobs that suck. Okay, they're doing that no one wants to do. So it just sounds great. It plays on your emotions, people. Let's just for 1 minute. That's why it's always great. The best way to be an informed voter is to turn off the news and actually go talk to your neighbor and say, hey man, what's going on with you? What are you concerned with? And then that's how you do things. And then you talk. And then you have real town hall meetings, not staged meetings on some corporate run news network. That's not a town hall meeting. That is a bunch of actors and a bunch of robots who have been told what to say and what they couldn't say. So it's not a town hall meeting when it's been edited, and even when someone speaks the way they really feel, you'll never know because it gets edited if it doesn't fit the agenda of that network. So that's why you go out to your real communities, not some contrived, made-up community on television. Like, come on, Community was a TV show. Leave it at that. So it's not going to be anything else if you're watching it on the boob tube, man. And they canceled that show, as a matter of fact. But anyhow, man. Let's talk about some things. We have our guest today, man. Like every time he comes on here, we talk about real issues in the world and not necessarily playing upon made up fears. Things that are really going on that should really get people motivated to take action and take responsibility and not leave it in the hands of politicians and whoever else, because a lot of times they're going to play catch up once the people are making moves. And our guest is one of those people who are out doing things and not just talking a good game. And those are the people that you should look to as a leader and as an example, like an inspiration. Like, you know what? That's what I'm talking about, because everybody's making promises. This dude's making moves. So, let's welcome our guest, James Pond, back on the show. Hey, James, what's going on, man?
Hey, thanks, Sincere. Appreciate being back on with you guys.
Oh, man, good to have you back. Yeah, it's a crazy week, not only just the election, but, it's just so funny that, this is the week also of Veterans Day as well. And of course, you are a veteran yourself, and thank you for your service. And it fits right into, the move that you made now, this new career path that you have and, dealing with our veterans, which, like you and I kind of talked about on Instant Message, why, we wanted you to have you back on the show. To even like, it's an election year, and there's also another issue going on. It's like what's going on with our vets and how our government is handling that situation. And, of course, a lot of them can't sit there and wait for the government. Otherwise, they won't be taken care of. So I thought it was just perfect to have you on the show, man, and just really talk about, your new move with this organization called Veterans Path. So other than that, man, what's been going on with you before we get into that?
Yeah. I made this transition just a few months ago. And, as you guys know, you guys have had me on the show before. I've been working in the anti-human trafficking field for almost the last 12 years. And, my wife and I launched an organization that was working in Cambodia. We were working with sex trafficking victims. And back in September of 2014, we decided to merge our organization. We really wanted to be able to help more victims in more places with the programs that we had set up. And so in 2014, we merged with an organization out of the UK called Hope for Justice. And sure enough, we've been able to expand programs. So now we're serving victims in the UK, the US, Cambodia, and Norway. And they're continuing to, look for, other places they can grow that aligns with, the mission and goals of the organization. And they're definitely doing good work. But what happened for me was in 2014, I realized I just have way too much ambition and passion to just kind of take a job somewhere and hold a position. And so I had felt like I really needed to turn that over to someone that, really wanted that position and take on a new challenge. And so for me, I don't know, you guys have had other vets on your program that, are doing some amazing work. And so, I'm sure you guys and your audience is familiar, but, you're talking about in America, we're sitting on this really strong precipice of an epidemic in America where we've got, 20 veterans a day are killing themselves. One active duty military member takes their own life every day. But what those numbers don't even account for is that we've had 7 million veterans served since 1990. So since the Gulf War years to now, we've had 7 million people. We have 2.5 million men and women that fought in combat. They're combat veterans in Iraq and Afghanistan that are returning home. And, what that number, that 20 suicides a day doesn't account for is it doesn't account for the numbers of attempted suicides. It doesn't account for the number of contemplated suicides. And even more so, it's not really giving us the struggle that many veterans are facing is that, they're not truly coming home. And, and so, this organization is, their mission statement is, empowering veterans to journey forward. We enable returning veterans to rediscover meaning, purpose, and joy in their lives through mindfulness, meditation, safe community. And this organization, when I heard about it, before I actually started with the organization, I went on a retreat myself. I'm an 8-year Marine veteran, and I've had some, crap living in my life that I just couldn't figure out. And I went out on this retreat, and I'll tell you, a week later, I came back, and it was transformative. Being in a group of other veterans that have experienced similar kinds of things, been through some of the same kind of crap that I've been through, and then tried to integrate into their civilian lives, not realizing that they're like, what's all this depression and anger and frustration and anxiety going on? It was an amazing experience of being able to walk through some of that stuff, learn some skills to help get my head straight. And as I started meeting these veterans, I'm like, I have to do this. I have to jump on board. There's no way we can continue to lose over 7,000 vets a year to suicide and inner conflict and turmoil without doing something. So as of September, I'm the executive director here at Veterans Path.
That's awesome. And the cool thing is the fact that you immersed yourself in it. So it wasn't like, oh, I see a position open, I'm going to take this position, and then I'll just figure it out, once I get there, what it's all about. It was one of those situations where, you did it and it's like, wow, how can I be a part of this? It's definitely more out there than just me. And I think it really helps in the situation because, you are a veteran yourself. So I think it makes it a little more welcoming to other vets out there when they see one of their own who's gone through it. So I'm pretty sure when you go out and speak and reach out to these guys, that brotherhood and sister, that family situation is there. So it's kind of like, oh man, okay, this dude gets it. He's been there. Because a lot of times you see folks they want to help. Civilians want to help. But a lot of times I know there's so many things that we don't understand that you guys have gone through and feel. And, a lot of times it gets I think that's part of the frustration I think a lot of vets go through when they come back. In fact, when they come back to the world, back into the free world here, that so many of us don't understand what went on wherever they were. And it becomes very frustrating. So you feel isolated.
Well, yeah. Well, there's an interesting facet to, I think, what we're facing, in particular with the last, 13 years of conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan, is that, it's anticlimactic. These guys spend multiple tours in combat zones with, just intensive combat exposure, and then come back to the United States and what? They're going to take like a desk job and sit 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, working for the weekend. So there's that side of it. There's sort of this adrenaline piece of veterans that, they don't feel like they have purpose and meaning in their lives anymore. But the other facet of it is, when you're in the military, you belong to the government. You're government property. I remember in 1987, I got a sunburn. I was in Japan. I got a sunburn on the beach, and I went into the clinic because I was like, it was bad, and I was going to get written up for destruction of government property. And
wow.
And so you realize like my ass belongs to them, and. And so you've got all this ritual, you've got, the boot camp ritual and promotion rituals. And, when you get a medal, there's a ritual. When every event in the military is kind of, it's recognize. And then you become a civilian, they hand you your discharge certificate, and there's no more ritual. There's no more connection and fanfare. And so those veterans no longer belong to the government. They belong to our communities. And I think in the last 10 years, we've seen more support from the public to say, like, I support the troops, but I don't think people really understand what that means. I mean, these guys are coming back with some ugly shit living in their heads that, there's got to be something that's more formalized in helping to really integrate, these men and women back into the fold of being a civilian and what that means to be a part of their communities.
Definitely. And, Mike and I have brought that up before in previous episodes, that when people say they support the troops, so like I say, it goes beyond just buying a yellow ribbon magnet to put on the back of your car and put a sign in your yard and you wave the flag. Yeah. One of the things especially being in the personal protection firearms world, I constantly look for veteran-owned businesses. A lot of those guys, that's usually like the first stop when they come back into the world, because it makes a little bit more sense for them. It's kind of reflective of what they've been through and what they've done, by going into that world, but at the same time, it's not exactly the same as it was, but it's a natural transition for a lot of these guys. So, I look for those things. And when someone's looking for an instructor, for certain things, if you're looking for things more tactical and things like that, I point people in the direction of a veteran-owned business, because who better to tell you about more tactical things than vets themselves? Because they've lived that. So don't come to me for that, because I haven't been in any tactical situations, as specific as that, and cornering and things like that. So, but then there's other veteran-owned businesses as well. I mean, like, I make a point, I see a lot of guys on Instagram, they have their business where they're selling, I don't know if they're selling just firearms parts, or they're selling T-shirts or things like that. They have their gyms. Some of these guys are transitioning into the fitness world now, and because they were really into fitness before they went into the service. And, of course, they really got into it even more when they were, serving. And then when it came back out, it's like, here's another natural fit for them. So, I always look to try to do my part to try to support those guys as well. So there are so many different ways of supporting your vets, other than, like I said, just buying that ribbon or just donating to organizations. It's like, we can still be more active. Or if you know someone, let's just say, I know you guys, you one of the programs that you include in Veterans Path is meditation. It's like, look, man, someone that's in yoga or meditation, they're into that. Here's a whole group of people that are being underserved with those things that can really help them out. So if you know an instructor, like, hey, you ever thought about going to this organization or trying to get in here, especially a lot of these people who are just starting off as yoga instructors, trying to what do I do in my business? And trying to serve everybody is usually a good way to fail at business. So I'm like, if people want to talk about dial down your niche, like, here's an underserved whole group of people right here. You got all these vets right here. So why not create yoga programs for them, meditation programs for them, talk to organizations such as Veterans Path. There's a start right there. So
yeah. I think looking at people's hormones, though, like what Dr. Mark Gordon does, is the most obvious thing that's not done. I mean, every soldier coming back should have a full blood work analysis done, because a lot of these symptoms he's noticed are from hormonal issues, or at least they could be mitigated or overcome more by optimizing hormones, just like with anyone who has hormonal issues. But besides supporting your organization, right, that seems like an obvious thing to do. Donate money to your organization, support the good work you do. What can people do on an individual level to help soldiers?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the things that we get, Mike, often is people are like, well, why isn't the VA doing something about it? And what you brought up about, hormone optimization and all of that is that there was a recent survey that was done that indicated something like 87% of returning veterans were open to alternative therapies, because their damn medicine closets are filled with, 18 to 36 different medications that they're taking that are just messing them up. It's messing up their, not just their physiology, but, their hormones, the way that their body's responding and reacting. And quite frankly, a giant bureaucracy like the VA can't do it. So, one, I think it's really looking at alternative therapies, but two, I think it's, one thing that I don't know that the general public knows is that it's only 0.5% of the entire American population serves in the military. And so we're running into a generation of people that are so far removed, they don't even know of that.
Right.
And so, my encouragement is, get to know your neighbors and find out who these vets are. In my neighborhood, I've got, 14, 15 of them. Find out who these veterans are and help make them a part of your local community. Invite them over to your house. Don't ask them war stories, because they're trying to leave
that's what people do, though, right?
How was it? Nobody they don't want to relive that, man. And then trust me, when they tell you, will you really understand when they tell you some of the stuff? Because then because you haven't been there, you're kind of looking like, wow, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I couldn't have done that. Obviously, you're not a vet.
Well, and I may need to come up with like a protocol sheet. These are like kind of the do's and the don'ts. I was in a crowd one day, and there's a bunch of Marine vets, and we're all hanging around together, and this guy's like, so how many people did you kill? I'm like, dude, that's not a cool question, man. That is, don't do that. I think it's really helping. It's understanding that veterans really need to return home. They don't need to go back to a war zone, and they don't need to relive those memories unless they're in that supportive community. And one of the things that we've made work at Veterans Path is that it is getting vets outdoors and doing physical activity to get those hormones activated, and then getting them into those group environments, teaching them mindfulness meditation skills. But the thing that it really makes this work, if you were to ask any veteran that's been through this, it's the vet community that they're in that becomes that support net that they needed when they first got out. And so, I think you're absolutely right. And every vet when they leave should, get a blood workup done, get, an evaluation, find out.
Well, I mean, it just rules out some things, right? If the vet has serious depression, instead of trying to guess where this is emanating from, let's look at the hormonal profile. Let's see that there's no DHEA, there's no pregnenolone, there's no testosterone. I mean, I'll give you an example. I have a young lady who served overseas quite a bit in Afghanistan and Iraq, and she came back, and I did some blood work for her. She's always been kind of moody, but I noticed that she was even more moody this time after this last time overseas. And you look at her blood work, and the first page looks pretty good. Her cortisol curve is good, high in the morning, low in the evening. And then you look at the second page, and she has no DHEA, no pregnenolone, no progesterone whatsoever, and that's the building block for cortisol. So what's happening is she's cannibalizing all of her sex hormones to make cortisol. Cortisol is an essential hormone. If you're not making it, you die. So she's cannibalizing all of her sex hormones, and there's no way you're going to feel good. I always say that I don't care how much meditation you do or how much counseling you do. If you're hormonally depleted, none of it's going to work. Your hormones have way more messages that provoke how you think and feel than the other way around.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think what we've got to do is we have to focus on wellness. It's the same way with, as a veteran, you get out and you're struggling. The last thing you need is, nicotine, alcohol, and drugs in your blood system.
Well, that's the other
on a recurring basis.
Yeah, alcoholism I've noticed quite a bit. with veterans that I'm either friends with or associated with. Like I know that actually the same person I'm talking about, she was getting drunk by herself every night. And one thing I did is just, I invited her. I kind of fell into what you recommend without realizing it, James, is that I just invited her over to the house to work out. She's a workout person, kettlebells, etc. I was like, look, why don't you come over to the house, work out with me and some other people a couple times a week, and then you're giving her a healthy outlet. Then usually we would hang out as a group afterwards and just chit chat about whatever came up. I wasn't asking her what happened over there, or anything like that. But sometimes those kind of stories would come up because she was comfortable, so she would bring up things without me trying to provoke that. But just giving her positive outlets was useful, so she's not sitting around at home every night drinking because she has no one to relate to.
Right.
Yeah, I have access to. I'm a part of a number of different veteran forums on social media that are private groups and all that. And the recurring theme that I get from veterans is either suicide announcements, just like a cry for help. But the second most prominent is vets saying, "Hey, is anyone else out there using alcohol to access their feelings?" It's like it's like the only place that they feel safe is to numb out, and then they can feel the emotions rather than trying to connect to the emotions in a healthy way. They're doing it in an unhealthy way.
And the average person does the same thing. People at the bar every Friday night,
not just them.
Way up their sorrows. Yeah, alcohol is never a solution for anything positive. No. Alcohol to me to be a celebratory thing. Like you're getting married, or you're going to a concert, or some big achievement just occurred. You go out, have a couple drinks, have some fun. But it should never be something you gravitate towards when you have sadness or sorrow or depression.
Yeah, it is the worst. It is the worst psychologist in the world.
Yeah. Well,
when you got a problem and you go to alcohol, it's like the diagnosis is always going to suck, dude. It's just like it's never going to be great, and it costs about the same thing per hour as going to a real psychologist.
Well, and
then you wake up with some chick you don't know, and
then you have new problems. STD or a new child that popped up out of nowhere. It's just like, God, it gets worse.
Yeah.
What were you saying, James? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, and I think the worst part about it is it's doing it alone. If at least they were with other friends, there'd be that support net. But I've been a person I just can't drink alone. I almost feel like it's wrong. Because
I've always been that way too. To me, it's always been a sign of a problem. It's like, dude, I'm getting drunk by myself. What the hell does that say about me? And trust me, there was a period in my life where that happened. I was going through a very bad marriage, and I did that, and to the point where I was like conscious enough to dude, you're sitting up here, you're drinking by yourself, and you're not drinking just like, oh, I'm enjoying a cigar or anything like this. Like, I'm trying to get drunk. I am trying to numb the pain. It's just like, why don't you just address the situation? The real situation.
Absolutely.
That's because it's still going to be waiting when you sober up. But the only thing is, now you got to deal with the situation with a hangover, which is going to make it even more intense. And you probably want to go drink again or just go to sleep.
I would take it one step further. One step further is just someone who has to have a couple drinks every night. Even that's a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Forget about people getting drunk. I mean, that's an obvious problem. Yeah. But someone who's like, let me just have a couple glasses of wine at the end of each day, that's a problem. And if they don't think it's a problem, just tell them to stop for 2 weeks and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it.
Well, I got to have my wine. Have to have your wine? Like, I got to have my wine every night just to go to sleep. And then that one's always funny to me. It's like, because I'm like, if you really thought about it, alcohol is one of the things that actually keeps you awake at night. It doesn't
the worst thing for sleep. Yeah. You may pass out. Yeah, you may pass out, but you're not going to have quality sleep. Anyone who's ever been on a bender, you pass out. You don't feel good the next day, even if you slept for 12 hours. You're basically in a state of suspended animation. You're not in a deep REM sleep state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like getting hit with a tranquilizer before bed. Like, hey, man, can you just shoot me one time with that thing? Oh, thank you.
But then, James, it's alcohol, and then it's Vicodin, and then it's Valium. It's often a cocktail. Different.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's dangerous. What I'm seeing that's a dangerous trend for a lot of vets across the country as I'm having these conversations is, they go to the VA clinic because I'll give you a good example. We got this young guy. He was a Marine during Battle of Ramadi. He gets hit with shrapnel, back of his leg, shrapnel on his back. He's got multiple surgeries. So, he separates from the military, gets his honorable discharge, and, he goes to the VA clinic. They give him 90 days worth of Vicodin. And the Vicodin ends, he goes back and he's like, I'm in massive fucking pain. Like, someone needs to help me out. And they're like, yeah, you're off that. So, he goes out and he tries a little pot and tries alcohol, and that doesn't work. So the epidemic we're seeing with veterans is heroin use.
Yeah.
And these guys are hitting the hard stuff because they've got some nasty things going on that, they're not getting help for.
It's often significantly cheaper than Vicodin and often more accessible.
And it's not a new trend. It's not a new trend. It's just been going on since like the Vietnam War. That was like one of their biggest issues coming back from Vietnam was the heroin use.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'll tell you what,
right. It's accessibility.
If you're in enough pain, though, you will take anything. That's the problem,
you'll find things.
How do you manage this pain without using some kind of strong drug or source?
Well, and that's where I think a lot of the meditative and mindfulness skills that vets are learning are actually helping them to manage pain. And then it's dealing with the other wellness aspects, dealing with your hormones, dealing with your diet, dealing with, fitness, dealing with lifestyle changes. You've got to take a holistic approach. It's never just kind of a one and done kind of thing. It's, finding that healthy balance again in your life, which for a lot of vets, when they were in the military, they had that, it was PT every day and, that camaraderie and lifestyle change was kind of forced on you. And then you get out and you don't have that anymore.
Well, that's why I've noticed some people get institutionalized where they just keep reserving. They come back from a deployment, they're back home for a month. They feel kind of guilty or they feel out of it or they don't have that support system. So even though they didn't like it out there, they go right back out. Yeah,
it's hurt locker syndrome.
Yeah.
And it's, what we're finding too is, vets that are just really dissatisfied with their life as a civilian, they want to replicate that. I have a couple of friends that they joined motorcycle gangs and just went off the grid because that felt more military-like than being a civilian.
Well, it's such an intense life experience, right? So when you come back to civilian life, there's going to be a level of boredom that's there, and you're chasing that adrenaline rush. So that if that's not harnessed properly, that can lead to some self-destructive tendencies as well.
Yeah, well, and actually that lends to something else, Mike, because you were asking, is that one of the things that we can do as a civilian population to help our veterans is that, they're looking for ways to serve and have purpose and meaning in their lives. All right, that might be on it. One of the things that I think happens often is, vets get out and they want to have meaning and purpose in their lives. And, we say to a lot of vets, we're like, hey, thank you for your service. And it's almost like what their purpose and meaning in life is done. And, I think that's what's initiating a lot of these veteran-owned businesses is that vets are creating their own purpose and meaning for themselves. But, we as a community can also help with that, helping them continue to give back to their lives. I'll give a great shout out. There's an organization that I've been working with that they're an apparel company. It's called Oscar Mike, and it was started by a veteran who what he wanted to do was just like pay it forward. And so not only is it veteran owned, it's veteran employed, and so they only hire wounded veterans. And so now these guys are out there, not only working in a job, but they're paying it forward so that there's a charitable arm to what they do. Right. Continue to support like other charitable organizations that are also helping veterans. So it's this kind of perpetuation of continuing to give people purpose and meaning in their lives.
Yeah. I think that's a good line of thinking as well is encouraging entrepreneurial type activities. In other words, in addition to doing lab work and so forth, how about some kind of training to help make that transition so that you're not just leaving the service and then not knowing what to do next? It goes, hey, have you ever thought about being an entrepreneur? Take this workshop. We'll give you some ideas. Here's how you start step by step by step. Here's how you take an idea from inception to execution. I think a lot of people need those things, even as a college student. I remember when I graduated, you just graduate and then you're out in the world and you're like, okay, now what do I do? There wasn't any transitional step of, okay, have you ever thought about starting a business? Here's what you do. Here's how you ace a job application. None of that stuff was there. So you're pretty much just thrown out there with a college degree thinking that that's enough to get you a job. It's like, okay, I have a degree now. I guess someone will hire me for something. And it was a rude awakening. No one cared about your degree. I could have made up a degree at most of these job interviews I went to. No one ever looked into it.
No. And, in the military, we'll tell you when, you're at the recruiter's office, hey, you've got all these amazing transferable skills when you become a civilian again. All these amazing things you're going to learn in the military are going to be applicable. And quite frankly, they're not. I kill people for a living is not an applicable civilian skill. But a lot of the drives, the skills that warriors learn, in the military, concentration, discipline, attention, commitment, perseverance, dedication, those are things that are applicable in their civilian lives. And at the end of your service, they usually provide this transitional assistance program that you go through that's supposed to help you acclimate to what civilian life is supposed to be like. But it lacks that component of like, what will be the next step if you're used to like running and taking that hill. Is there a business idea out there that you want to run and take over? This is how you would go about doing that entrepreneurial endeavor and being successful in your own right, rather than, stumping around for a job to work for someone else.
Yeah, if it's not clearly delineated how to transfer one skill set to another, people aren't going to put it together. I always say that intense weight training teaches you a lot about yourself and how to persevere and so forth, but that's very vague, right? That's not specific on how to take those skill sets to starting a business or whatever else you want to do. It has to be much more specific.
Yeah. Well, you always go back to, the Henry Rollins article on the iron, 200 pounds is always 200 pounds, That's There's huge lessons there, but they're macro lessons. That it's the micro lesson of like, okay, I've got this really great idea. Now what? And you're right. There's no class in college or high school on here's how you develop your entrepreneurial idea and move the ball forward on how to make it a success.
Right. I mean, if people really want to do it, they'll take the extra steps to figure it out. But a lot of people are going to fall through the cracks if you just leave it up to them to figure things out. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem right there. It's like, oh, well, people they'll just figure it out, and no one really figured out anything.
We don't like pain, and when it comes to things being complicated and you can't figure it out, it's painful, and people very pain adverse. Like, you know what's easy? Just going to work for someone. Because there's no pain in that other than just kind of suffering and having to deal with some jackass.
Oh, that's pain.
It's a type of pain. It's kind of like the people that pack Benadryl in their purse every day. That pain has become so normalized that you don't even think about it twice. But so they have enough of that pain to start trying to introduce a new pain of trying to figure things out on their own to be on their own.
People working at the post office, they look like there's some serious pain. Pain of boredom.
They look sedated. They don't even look like they're in pain. They look like they've been sedated already. It's just like they're just kind of waiting for it. Well, they're waiting for the end.
Well, one of the things I can say about our veterans in particular is that they are definitely not pain averse. And I think it's that kind of drive that has made a lot of these, veteran organizations and companies a success. I mean, look what, Wes Whitlock has done with, Rogue American. Like he's just tearing it up. So, you give these guys a bone and they can run with it. We've just got to create some opportunities for them to be able to do that.
Now, you went through a retreat with the organization you're affiliated with now, and you had some breakthroughs. Is that something you can share?
Yeah, I mean, and I'd be happy to share some of it. One of the things I found when I got out is I was intensely angry, not all the time. I just have like these outbursts. Right. And, sometimes they were aimed at my kids, sometimes they were aimed at my wife, sometimes they were just aimed at nothing. I'd just be pissed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why. There was no logical reason behind it. So I got out on this retreat and, we started out with just some very kind of probing questions to go through as a group and then doing some, really strong sort of meditation, focused breathing exercises, really trying to connect to like what's going on behind this. And then we broke up in small groups and with other veterans, and we just started just kind of dialoguing. So the organization gave us some discussion questions, like here's some things you guys could prompt each other with. No one was prying, but just, what's going on. And one of the things I discovered, I just had this huge breakthrough was, I'd been through a period in my military career where I was dealing with just an intense amount of shame and guilt. And I had been carrying that stuff at a really, really deep level. And it wasn't something I could sit down and talk to civilians about. It wasn't something, you could go write a cathartic article about or a book. And I just had this emotional breakdown. You know, it was like this wall finally came down and I realized like, oh, that's what all that emotion is tied up in. And so the rest of the week, you know, I worked with the facilitators and some of the other vets to just kind of figure out some skills I could begin working through some of that stuff, and begin the process of healing in my life and seeing those areas mend. And it was amazing. I came back and Athena was like, you are just so unbelievably zen right now. Like I've just never seen you this way. And it was due to just being able to surface and access those emotions.
Well, I would say people are sleeper cells walking around, right? They have traumas they've been through that have been repressed, and those repressed experiences affect your behavior on a daily basis, whether you're aware of it or not. And once you're aware of it, you start understanding, okay, this is why I'm acting this way. Now you can do something about it. But if you're not even aware of it, that's a real problem, because like you said, James, you don't know why you're having this anger or this irritation or these outbursts.
Yeah. And I was concerned like you know, that there was something like seriously, I mean, I remember referring to myself as like broken. You know, it's like I just felt like something wasn't right. The engine wasn't functioning in the right way. And, you know, once you were able to connect, like the dots start connecting. These events, these things, these emotions, these things, then down, and it became a ticking time bomb, like you said. Like you know, you're walking around just waiting to go off, and I think a lot of vets are carrying around a lot of those heavy burdens that they don't know what to do with, and they don't have a name for it. They don't know what it is. You know, you know, they feel like I'm just angry. But, you know, what is it that people say? Like anger is simply repressed depression, you know? And so, you know, what's really going on? How do we help vets to be able to access those healings, be able to recognize what's going on, and then start the process of working through it and healing?
Yeah, in a weird way, training can help with that, because when you work out really hard, a lot of these things start coming out too. Just like a lot of massage therapists have said that they've had people start crying on their table because you're working through people, and there's all of a sudden these traumas start surfacing up. So physical training can sometimes help with bringing those things to the surface.
Absolutely. And you know, a lot of the work that you're doing, Mike, I mean, you know, helping people to optimize themselves hormonally, it also helps them to be able to access it. You know, like I think, you know, we've had discussions before about, you know, people that have, you know, men in particular with low testosterone levels that are dealing with all kinds of rage. Bring the testosterone levels up, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, I feel pretty normal. I can now access the feelings as to I can rationally work through the things that have made me angry rather than having visceral response to it.
Yeah, it's not going to get rid of the underlying problem, but it gives you the tools to deal with it more effectively.
Yeah, it's a good start. I mean, I can speak for experience just 24 hours ago. It was just something that was very frustrating that I pretty much been dealing with. It's one of those things where you just like, dude, like, why is this so frustrating? And like, you know, you're constantly trying to, especially people like us who are really, you know, you can really get inside your head and you start coming up with all these solutions. That becomes even more frustrating. And to the point where, but I'm telling you, yesterday I just kind of, you know, Mike and I were talking last week about just like pretty much modifying German volume training. We were talking about that on the premium episode last week. And for some reason, it's just like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just dip into this 10 sets of 3 with just deadlifts, you know, for like 60% of my 1 rep max. And, you know, like going into the gym yesterday, I was just, dude, I just feeling a little bit numb and a little perplexed. You know, it happens. I don't care what anybody can listen to us all the time. Don't think that we don't have our off days, you know, but the thing is, it's all about how you deal with them. My thing is, I don't like to let those off days be plural. I like an off day, you know, because I'm the type of person, I don't want to deal with this tomorrow. So let me just start working on this now. So by the time I finished that program, that training set, man, and that was my way back home, I felt relief. And once I got home, I addressed I had the solution. And it just felt like there was this 600-pound gorilla that was just off my back and off my chest. You know, just all that just because I got that release. Now, trust me, you know, here's the thing. It's an ongoing process. Don't think that, okay, every time I have an issue, I need to go work out. Like, no, man, that's like Marcus was saying, that's a good start. That's a good start.
Yeah.
But one thing about it, my testosterone was ramped up and my thinking, you know, became a lot more, it became sharpened at that point. It became laser focused because I just did something for 10 sets where I needed to be very razor sharp and focused with my thinking. So that kind of just led the way. It inspired what I needed to do once I left that gym, because you can't have your mind all over the place when you're doing deadlifts if you're going to do it right. You know, so,
well, I mean, your brain chemistry was likely optimized too, because you went in there with a goal, you achieved it, so now you have a dopamine response. You have an choline response, so your brain chemistry is more tuned in now as well, so you feel more focused, and that allows. Also, you got rid of a lot of the nervous anxiety energy too, which often mitigates the ability to handle any problem. That you can just get drowned in that anxiety state. So that's where physical training just helps you crush the anxiety, and now your brain is free to think of a solution.
Yeah. I think for 15 years I was addicted to working out as the only coping mechanism I had.
Right.
So, I'd go in and I would just, pound my body and leave exhausted, but still, all the crap still going on inside. You still have the same problems, same issues you have to face, same emotions, but you're not accessing them, So I think there's this place where you've got to find, like, what Sincere was going in with a goal. Like, here's what I'm going to do. Go in, it's structured, and then it helps to kind of rebalance things. I was using it literally as like my own coping mechanism instead of, drugs or alcohol.
Well, that's very common. That's very common in the fitness industry. We know a lot of people.
Man. We know so many people like that. We know
people who have 4 gym memberships and they work out 7 days a week. I mean, come on.
For 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. It's like, geez.
They the only place they feel comfortable.
Do you guys have a nickname for these guys? Or?
Somebody, they're just like a drug addict. They're a gym addict. Somebody, I have something for them. It's just like, denial. That's the word I have for them. Like, because you're denying the real issue. Somebody, that's what that is. Like, guess what? Just like with alcohol, getting drunk, when you sober up, that problem's still sitting there looking you right in your face when you sober up. When you get out of that bed, that problem's looking at you like, hey, drunk ass, I'm glad you woke up. I'm still here. You got to deal with me sooner or later. So now, guess what? When people go and work out for 2 or 3 hours, when you walk out of that gym into that parking lot, that problem's sitting in the car waiting for you. It kept the car running for you. Like, hey, we're just ready to ride back home because I'm still here, dude. So you're going to face me sooner or later. That's all that is. It's just denial.
The problem with trying to make working out a solution to everything is that you have a tendency to overdo it, and now it's counterproductive, where you're not optimizing your hormonal profile, you're depleting it. I mean, at a certain point, intense workouts depletes your hormones anyway, so that's why you have to have more restorative measures, massage, deep sleep, etc. It starts becoming something where if you don't balance the recovery of part of the equation, you're actually doing more damage than good. And it's one of the worst kept secrets. It's probably not even the worst kept secret. It's more common now. Is a lot of people who look like they're really fit and train very intensely often have sexual dysfunctions. A lot of guys have ED who work out really hard all the time because they're actually depleting their testosterone. They're in this constant inflammatory state. They're in this constant adrenaline state. So it's easy training has to be very precise, like medicine, right? You don't just randomly take even with supplements, you want to have the precise dose for effectiveness. You don't just grab a handful of testosterone booster pills and hope for the best. You want to know exactly what the precise dose for your body weight for you, whatever's optimal. Training's the same thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So like Mike was saying that you also got to add in, restorative measures as well, and such as massage and, meditation. James, I know, especially when guys come from, a lot of the vets are coming from intense situations, man, and there's that adrenaline rush. And a lot of times, even just civilians, when you bring up something like meditation or yoga, civilians are like, I can't meditate. I just can't just sit there and be quiet. It's just, or yoga's like, that's just too soft for me. So you have guys like the vets who are coming back, who have been in intense situations. Like, how receptive are they in the beginning when you bring, when you guys bring up programs such as meditation to, really help them just sit and be,
Yeah. Well, often they're not. And it's a reason that we came up with the program structure that we came up with. When the organization was started, it was started by 2 women. One is actually a Buddhist priest, and the other has been in the sort of mindfulness sensory awareness world since the 1970s. And when they started this, they thought, if we could give this gift of mindfulness skills to veterans, we could help to improve their overall wellness and their ability to access emotions. And so they did this thing where they invited a bunch of veterans to come and do this, and nobody wanted to do it. And so finally a veteran told them, like, hey, why don't we do something cool? And so they decided, let's go rock climbing. They got a bunch of vets to show up. They all went rock climbing, got physically active. And what it did is it started activating and helping them to access a lot of the hormones and feelings, emotions, things that are going on in their body, that then they could actually sit still long enough to actually learn some of these skills. And once they start to do it, particularly we have veteran leaders that will do it where, it's one vet talking to another vet. Those guided meditations are usually pretty powerful. And veterans realize, like, I'm accessing something here that I've never been able to tap into before. And so there's more and more openness after kind of that initial bump of getting them to actually sit down long enough to try it.
Honestly, it's like training a puppy. I mean, we're fostering this little girl right now, this little puppy, and she is trying to teach her commands is difficult unless she's tired, because she's in this she's so energetic. She's in this constant ADD state, right? But you go run her out. So I take her to the park, I run her out, right? Just exhaust her, bring her back to the house. Then you start teaching her commands and so forth. And she's very receptive. She's very smart. She picks up on it easily. You just have to work out all of that anxiety energy, all that adrenaline energy, and then. Kind of like it's a weird analogy.
James, he just spoke Parent 101, right, James?
Yeah,
that's something we learned as parents early off. It's just like, hey, man, let them run it out, and then.
Well, I mean, it's also
then it's pretty much they have no choice but to pay attention or go to sleep.
Yeah. You ever watch 24? It's also torture 101, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You make someone really tired, and you deprive them from food and sleep and so forth. You start becoming more susceptible to the power of suggestion.
The Jack Bauer syndrome.
Yeah, season 6.
Yeah.
Jack Bauer therapy. That's what we need. He's JBT, man.
That's right. Yeah. So it is. I mean, that's there's a lot of organizations. They're taking vets out and they do a lot of fun stuff and physical activity. But there's got to be something that's transferable afterwards to help these vets in the process of healing. And so it's like one part of the picture. This meditation.
Otherwise, it's like going to a Tony Robbins event, right? You go there for a couple of days, you're all heightened up, you're hugging strangers, you come out of there feeling like you're ready to sing Kumbaya for the rest of your life. Then you get back to wherever you came from. You're like, oh shit, the same problems I had before.
I still work around a bunch of assholes. I still hate my job.
Yeah.
No, it's just that that's not real life. Like the way people are at that event, that's not even how they are every day. They're just in this narcotic state because Tony's a master hypnotist. He puts people into these weird states. He has guys roaring like lions. That's how good he is at manipulating people at these events. But a lot of people want to be manipulated, especially people who go to these events. So they go there like, great, this cult-like figure is going to manipulate me for 3 days because I can just hand over all responsibility and power to him. But then what the fuck are you going to do once you leave? You're not going to do anything.
How fitting that you say that on election day.
Well, and veterans don't want a bunch of bullshit. They don't want something that's going to be fake and temporary. They've kind of had it, and they need something that's accessible, that's tangible. So it's creating that combination of get out, physical stuff, get activated, but then it's bringing it down to are there real skills, and then it's taking those skills and then going, how do we connect it to a supportive veteran community so that when shit's gone wrong on Monday that was just awesome on Friday, you've got a group of people that can help to support and reinforce the skills that you've learned so that you can move the ball.
No doubt. Accountability is really important no matter what the context is.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so little of it. I mean, I'm sure you get people all the time that want to come to you and they just want to get ripped, and it's like that's like one aspect of the journey, and without some level of accountability for what goes in their body, when they go to sleep, how they live their lives.
And then the real question is, why do you want to get ripped? Is this something you're actually motivated by, or did you just go see the latest Thor movie and thought it might,
or you saw Tom Hardy and you heard some chicks talking about how hot he was. You're like, well, hell,
exactly.
If I get a body like him, if I start getting built like Bane, then chicks will start digging me too. Like, no, dude, it's not going to be that simple for you.
I mean, like with training, it has to be. It's always laughable when someone wants you to give them their goals. It's like, no, you need to come up with your own goals that are important to you, because otherwise you're not going to stay the course. I mean, everyone should have, and anyone who works out hard who's been doing it for a long time, you have your own goals that are important to you. Someone else may think they're trivial, and that's fine, but to you they're important, and that's what allows you to stay the course and focus on that destination.
Yeah, truth. Now, one of my goals was to have predator-like locks like Sincere, but I don't think it's going to happen for me.
Yeah, then you're gonna look like John Travolta in Battlefield Earth, so it might not be.
Oh gosh, man. Oh gosh, bad vision.
Oh, that's an image I'm not going to be able to get out of my head.
I know. I can't unsee that in my head right now.
Not too many white guys can rock the dreadlocks. You know, if you like the guys in corner do it. They got it. Rob Zombie, stuff available, but it's not a whole lot. You know?
Oh, sincere, man. That just wrecked it, brother.
I know. It almost made me want to cut mine off right now. It's like, just so I don't inspire another dude like him to want to grow them out.
Well, we know what Sincere's going to look like when he's 60. King Ezekiel in The Walking Dead. Anyone who watches that show? You know?
As per the post that Mike and Prince posted on Twitter the other day. And it's funny. Hold on. It was so funny. I showed my wife that, and she started cracking up. She's like, "Oh my God, Mike hit it right on the head." I was like, "Okay, don't encourage him."
Like posture, like you're sitting on this throne with the cane in your hand. I was like, yeah, I can see Sincere doing that.
Like James Earl Jones.
Post-apocalyptic world, little commune. You know?
Oh my God, that's perfect.
So James, the real question is like, so are you guys still involved with Hope for Justice, or was Athena taking over from that position that now that you've moved to Better Path?
That's a great question. Yeah. So Athena is continuing to work at Hope for Justice. She's still managing the same programs. We've been hiring some new folks. So that program continues. We've got, 128 some odd employees at Hope for Justice now. They're expanding the work that they're doing. They're looking at, other countries that they can begin helping victims in. So they're continuing to do good work. They're just doing it without me. And I actually am continuing to sort of advise where I can and help the organization from the sidelines. But, my focus now is really getting, Veterans Path off the ground and get it up and functioning the way it should be.
Now, here's an interesting question just popped up in the mind right now, because I'm thinking, I know you probably heard the episode we did with Ty Ritter a couple of months back. So, and now I'm seeing this opportunity. I see, your experience from Hope for Justice, and now you're working with vets. And just like, you ever thought about some type of crossover with that, where, there's an opportunity where, some of these vets can even help with that as far as helping with, with sex trafficking, and just pretty much like the same thing that Ty's doing with his organization with Project Child Save.
Yeah, there's actually a number of organizations out there that, a lot of, veterans that have come back and have those skill sets to be able to do that. Operation Underground Railroad does a lot of work with ex-special ops guys. I know Ty's organization's doing good stuff. There's probably 7 or 8 out there, and I'm drawing a blank on a number of them, but there are opportunities. There's things like Mission Continues that takes vets and puts them into some really cool opportunities. Operation Rubicon, they're taking returning vets and helping them to engage in a lot of like logistical operations and getting emergency supplies to international locations and that kind of stuff, doing disaster relief work. So I think there's lots of opportunities. I have not thought about doing it only because there's just such a high demand and a high need to be in sort of the healing aspect of things. That's kind of where we're going to remain focused is, growing these programs out to, we're going to be expanding to Tennessee this next year. We're looking at places like Colorado and Texas as some of our.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Texas as well, because it's there's a very large veterans presence here. With Killeen and San Antonio, the Air Force base out there, and definitely there would be great opportunities right here in Texas for that.
Yeah, we have a retired Army colonel that is actually on our board of directors that's in San Antonio. And so, she's got enormous connections, inside the veteran community and military community there. So right now we're in sort of these ongoing conversations about where we can be most useful. And it's really looking at where the most density of veterans are. So like in the state of Tennessee, we've got something like 275,000 veterans.
Wow.
And so, there's just tremendous need. Texas is a big one. Colorado is another one with the Air Force Academy and the number of military bases that are there. So this next year we'll be expanding to Tennessee, and then we'll be looking at 2018 as sort of a national expansion time for us to be looking at, other states. So I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop on, where we decide to go next.
Perfect, man. Sounds really good.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this, James?
This is my third month.
Okay. So this is really new for you.
This is super new. I came in, I'm the first official executive director for the organization. They were functioning under fiscal sponsorship since in 2015 it became a 501c3. So, I'm basically getting the infrastructure for the organization launched. And so the first 90 days, what were we joking about the election? The first 100 days. But my first 100 days has been just a freaking whirlwind of stuff flying at me.
I bet.
Now it's all coming together and starting to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Seems like
I remember when you posted it.
Energy. Yeah, go ahead, Sincere.
No, I was saying, I remember when you posted it on, I think I saw it when you first posted it on Instagram, but then on Facebook, and then I saw that and I reposted it. But what's crazy is, like, from the day you posted it, it seems like you hit the ground running. It's just like, yeah, it's not just like, oh, I'm at this new position, with this organization. It's more like, hey, man, I'm doing a lot of stuff right now, and by the way, I'm here now. But I can't talk to you right now. I got a lot of stuff to do. We can talk about it later. I'm working right now. So it's kind of like, it was like a drive-by posting. It's just like, oh, there goes James.
It felt like a drive-by posting. It was.
Well, that's a good sign. That's a good sign you're actually doing something, because, there's a correlation between spending a lot of time on social media and getting nothing useful done.
Right.
Yeah, I'm relying on volunteers to help me with social media stuff, because I just don't have the bandwidth. You're absolutely right. Like, I've got to be out meeting with, potential donors, key donors, stakeholders, veterans service organizations, really getting my feet wet on, what the best way to put this organization in the best possible position could be.
Seems like there would be a lot of synergy between you and Warrior Angels, Andrew Marr and Dr. Mark Gordon's organization.
Absolutely. I'd love to be linked with them.
We can link you to them. Yeah, we'll link you. We can link you to them. I'm actually meeting up with Dr. Mark Gordon later this month out here, so I'll bring it up as well. But there definitely seems you guys are both targeting the same outcome, just different mechanisms. So it seems like
I think they complement each other.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think things we can do together. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I'm finding and loving, is that, in the charitable world, a lot of times you're out competing. It's,
right.
We're doing water stuff and they're doing water stuff and we're competing. And as I've been having conversations with veterans organizations, everyone's like, shit, there's too big a need. We need to do this like we did in the military together.
Right.
And so there's a lot of camaraderie of coming alongside each other and figuring out ways to develop that synergy. And so, I'd say, listening to us today, if you know of another agency that's helping veterans, like, get them in touch with me, because I'll reach out in a heartbeat and figure out, how we can help their vets and they can help ours, and we can figure out how to, bring some healing to these, men and women together. We don't need to do
Warrior Angels, one of the things Warrior Angels is trying to do is make it a standard where every soldier coming back does go through an intense protocol, looking at their hormones, their endocrinology, et cetera, neurotransmitter balance. They want that to be a standard.
Yeah. And I think it should be. And,
yeah, absolutely.
The work that they're doing as well, just with developing protocols for vets, I think is complementary to the work that we're doing, because they get their hormones straight. Then we can start working through some of the, the more outlying emotional issues and help them develop those coping skills they're going to need down the road that are going to be, more long lasting, get them involved in a ongoing community that will continue to support them as they, transition into their civilian lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you want to expand to Texas, and, I know Andrew, Warrior Angels is right here in Texas as well. So that's a good, probably another good point person, because, one thing about our state is very big. So I know you have a connection in San Antonio, which is quite a distance from Dallas as well. So you can pretty much have those connections from top and bottom of Texas. So, man.
Yeah. Well, when we've had the fortunate, opportunity to actually serve some vets from Texas. So we actually had, one from Austin that was out at a recent, event. We've had some others from, San Antonio. So, we're already serving vets in other areas. We've just got to start bringing programs to them locally so that they don't have to fly out to the California Bay Area to get those programs.
Definitely.
Yeah, I guess that's the other challenge, is just proliferating all of these different strategies so they're accessible to as many people as possible?
Yeah, well, scaling strategy is really, what it's all about. I think it was one of the reasons that, I appealed to this organization is, we've had the opportunity, working, in Cambodia to take the programs we were doing there and scale those out to, other countries, is that now we've got to start thinking about, how do you make those programs accessible? How do you scale? How do you, stay, relevant without expanding your supply and program lines to something you can't support. And I think a lot of it really has to do with starting to lean on, other agencies. There's a vet agency in Kansas City, Missouri that I'm trying to link up with because they're providing some really phenomenal services. We just got to link arms and figure out how to send some of our vets over there and get, some of the vets that they're trying to serve out here into programs that we're doing. So it's just finding those synergies, I think, that are going to be critical, in the near future.
Yeah, this is totally off topic, but in Vegas, you see a lot of stupid behavior, right? And I was just remembering, this is years ago. I was walking by a bar, and there was some young ladies there who just came back from overseas. I don't know if they were still in the service or not, but some guys were trying to chat them up. And all I remember overhearing is one guy saying, I'd really love to give back to the troops. It's like that was like his opening line or something like that. and then I didn't even have to turn and see the eye roll. I could feel it from the.
What? You keep you and your little small range missile to yourself, buddy. That's what you do.
Nice.
Nice. So there you go, ladies. You can use that one on some jackass when it comes to you like that.
But one thing Warrior Angels has brought to light is how much PTSD is not necessarily related to experiencing traumatic events, but because of head concussions. So you have the head concussion, so now your growth hormone and your testosterone and other neurotransmitters are just completely shut off. So you have to replace not just testosterone, but everything else that's depleted. And then when you create that hormonal orchestra working again, all of a sudden everything else falls into line. That was Andrew's experience. Andrew was an alcoholic. He's a former special forces guy. He came back. He was the last deployment. He came back. All of a sudden, it wasn't the same as the ones previously to that, where he adapted fairly quickly back to civilian life. So he was drinking a lot. He was an alcoholic. It wasn't until he went to Dr. Mark Gordon, got everything optimized, that all of a sudden, he said like the first testosterone shot he got, immediately he felt better.
Yeah. Well, and now there is another aspect too to I think PTSD that vets are dealing with, and it's around the issue of moral injury. And that's something that we see a lot of is, vets coming back that, they have conflicted with their own, sort of moral standing, the things that they believe, the way that the world's supposed to work, their sort of moral stature, and then they violate that, come back, and they're living with a tremendous amount of guilt and shame that they can't access. They can't quite rationalize, like, what happened versus what they believe and or their sort of moral structure in the world.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
So that's a much bigger challenge. I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to say that every example of PTSD is because of head concussions, of course. That's just one factor that's not always looked at. I think just optimizing the hormonal profile would give someone the tools to help deal with those things, but obviously it's not a 100% solution for that either. It's much more complex than that.
Well, I think
but if you're in a hormonal state and you have that issue, then you're just running on nothing. That candle is burned on both ends. There's nothing to work with.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I mean, I think we've got to start looking at people as a whole person and figuring out, like, how do we work on people at all of those levels and being open to this idea of these alternative therapies rather than just doping up our troops and hoping that the problem goes away, because that's obviously not working.
Well, I mean, it's emblematic to larger society as well, because the average person does the same thing. You're depressed, you go to the doctor, you leave with several medications. Underlying cause is never addressed, and then you're just in this self-medicated state, literally, for however long you're on these medications, potentially the rest of your life.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is that when we get veterans, they'll come through these veteran path programs. Is that we had one gal, she was on 36 medications, now she's down to 3. Wow. We've got another vet, he was on 18 medications, and he's slowly weaning himself off of these. I mean, they're chemicals. I mean, they're just toxic chemicals that they're putting in the body.
what exactly were the 18 medications, just out of curiosity?
Exactly.
Because, I mean,
oh my God. So he has one.
It's like going to a bar and getting 18 different brands of scotch and vodka just to get drunk. It's just like, dude.
Right.
It's like,
no, so he's got one for anxiety, one for depression, one for the PTSD, which I don't know what they had him on for that. He's got one for IBS. He's got one to deal with constipation. He's got one to deal with, like
which
some
is
kind
caused
of
by the other medications.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like, when you start giving people these massive cocktails like that, you have no idea what. I mean, I give it to our doctors.
One drug, you have to take another one to address the side effects of the first drug.
The side effects.
The second one may have side effects. Now you got a third one to address that, and it just goes on and on.
It's a domino effect, and that's, I think. We've got really bright doctors, but there's no way that you can manage the potential side effects or impact of anything beyond, a couple few medications interactions.
I mean, statins are a good example, right? Statins shut off your sex hormone production. So you take a statin, it drives down your cholesterol, but now you have no sex drive whatsoever, and then it starts affecting your brain. Now you have no memory. You start having memory loss. Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious thing would be to get off the statin, but then they'll say, okay, well, we'll give you Viagra to address the sexual dysfunction. And then now we're going to give you we'll give you Deprinyl to address the brain issues. But, I mean, you only have the secondary issues because of the primary drug you're on.
Yeah, yeah. Every time I talk to you, Mike, I always feel like, when you're in college and you take that psychology course, like you start thinking like, I'm schizophrenic, I must be, depressed, every time you start talking about hormones, man, I'm going like, my shit's got to be all out of balance.
Well, I mean, everyone's really are, and even when you get in the balance, keeping it in balance is a challenge. It's always a challenge. You're always tinkering with it, right? It's never something where you go, okay, cool, I got it dialed in. It's like, yeah, you do have it dialed in right now, but how do you sustain that? Because your body's chemistry is constantly changing. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's you talk about sort of a volatile playing field, and trying to optimize, a veteran's hormones is, which state are you trying to balance? The one that's agitated, the one that's at sort of homeostasis.
You're right.
It's pretty challenging.
But it's amazing that it's not medical malpractice when a patient is leaving with 36 medications. Yeah. I mean, that should be concerning to the physician. They should be thinking, wow, I just had this guy or young lady leave with 36 medications. So don't you think that's a problem?
And he came with this one issue, and I just gave him enough drugs to handle 36 different issues. And guess what? It's going to end up producing 35 more issues to that one that the guy came in with.
A lot of these doctors always talk about people who take a lot of supplements, or like, oh, these people are taking all these supplements. It's like, yeah, those are supplements, though. You're recommending 36 medications to someone, which have way more harsh side effects.
Yeah. Well, imagine trying to juggle that. So as a veteran, you're coming back, you've got enough things you're dealing with, and now you got to figure out the timing of that, taking these 36 medications.
That's going to cause anxiety right there.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I have anxiety just thinking about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So imagine like with vets and also the elderly as well. It's like, okay, they're pretty much, their brain is pretty much already deteriorating or whatever with age, probably because of all these conditions. Now you want them to keep up with all their different medications. And I'm sorry, there are only so many alerts you can put on your freaking phone before you just start getting a little confused. It's like the alarm is going off every 5 minutes. You spent the last hour just hitting, the dismiss button and taking a pill. It's like, wow, man, you don't have a life anymore.
You can't possibly know how the interaction of all of these different medications is going to affect you either. You can't possibly know.
No. I mean, I remember having
completely nullified by the other things you're taking.
Oh yeah, I remember having surgery. 20 years ago, and I had a couple of medications, and one would give me dry mouth, and the other one would give me massive headaches, and then you took them together, and it created this combination of crap where your whole body just felt like it was all tightened up and just a mess. Yeah. So, imagine having to do that with, multiple medications every single day just to try to, manage and access some sense of well-being and health.
Yeah, I mean, improving diet obviously would be another thing to work with as soldiers. Like, okay, here's your hormonal profile, here's some supplements and other protocols that can help, and here's how we're going to revamp your nutrition protocol.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, of these soldiers who left for 36 medications, I doubt there was even 1 minute spent on what their diet is like and sleep, et cetera.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
it's just so much easier to prescribe them.
Yeah, well, and food is chemicals we're putting in our body too. So how do those interact with the medications they're taking? Can you drink milk? Can you have yogurt? Should you be eating red meat? All those kinds of interactions no one's really talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, how's it interacting with that drug? And so it's like, man, it's just nonstop. You are just a walking version of the periodic table of elements. Comes down.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Absolutely.
And then who knows what the long-term consequences of being on that many medications are.
Well, I think we're finding out, and I think when vets are feeling desperate enough to take their own lives, we're reaching kind of a fever pitch where we need to start looking at some alternative ways of doing things.
Well, that's one of the crazy side effects of some antidepressants. They say may increase thoughts of suicide.
Suicidal thoughts.
I'm just like, wait a minute, isn't that the point of me taking this so I don't have these thoughts of suicide? It's just like taking a supplement may increase your desire to want to get fat. It's just like, wait a minute, man. I'm taking Viagra, so I may increase erectile dysfunction. Like, why the hell am I popping this damn pill then? Okay.
You take Viagra, you may have diarrhea, so you have to make a decision. It's like, is this girl worth it to the point where I'm going to be on the camel? I may be blind. I may be blind for a while too. So you got to start weighing the pros and cons.
So wrong. So wrong.
Like, man, I had a great Woody, but boy.
But man, those runs.
Every roll of toilet paper in the house afterwards.
So pretty much you end up being a minute man anyway, because by the time you get started, you got to go to the bathroom, so you got to cut it off, man. It's like, all right, I'll be right back.
Nice. Man.
But the antidepressants, those ones are really disconcerting. But all of the different side effects of each one are pretty disconcerting as well. So, all right, take this to address whatever the syndrome is, but these are the other problems that you don't have right now that all of a sudden you're going to have.
Yeah.
He's like, wait a minute, you didn't have that at first. Well, now you do. There's a possibility that you probably will. But we got a pill for that too, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
somebody had an app for that. We got a pill for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's causing, enough frustration in the veteran community that they're saying, hey, I'm open to alternatives. Let me try some, meditation. Let me, try some, hormonal optimization type stuff. I think the kind of the old deal of I'll just go to the VA hospital and take what they give me, it isn't working out. It's not been a long-term solution. And we've got enough evidence, sort of year after year with a number of returning veterans that are struggling through this, that, now we've got enough data to be able to go, maybe we should be looking at alternative ways of doing these things, which is, it's a positive move. It's just, it's a big ship to turn around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think also the problem is that how many people are even aware of the problem? Because we all talk about supporting the troops, this and that and so forth, but a lot of people are just trying to placate themselves, put a little bumper sticker on their car, send someone an email, and then go back to whatever you were doing and not think about it.
Yeah. Well, and you're absolutely right. I don't think that there's enough awareness about what's happening. And I don't think this is something that we're comfortable talking about. Suicide has always been a bit taboo. As well as, there's kind of all ends of the spectrum on, the last 13 years of military action. You've got, large percent of the population is completely against it, a large part of the population was completely for it, and a segment in the middle that doesn't even know what the hell to think, or people that didn't even know that it was going on. And so, we're fairly divided as a country, and I'm hoping that
doubt
the welfare and well-being of our vets is what could unite us. I don't think anyone wants to see these young men and women taking their own lives.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just hard to have serious discussions with people on anything that is serious. I mean, for example, after the Ty Ritter episode, just trying to talk to neighbors at the dog park or something, like, how are you doing? I was like, normally you just go through the normal, oh, I'm great, how are you? And then you move on. But here I would say, oh, I just did this great episode with my friend, on the LLA podcast with Ty Ritter, and I would go into how kids are being kidnapped out of the United States as well, sold into sex slavery and human trafficking. Is not just an issue of people in third world countries. It's also an issue happening here. And people would just shut off or change the topic immediately or walk away quickly.
Yeah.
It's like no one wanted to hear it. And these are, I mean, if you can't get compassionate and motivated to help children, then it's very daunting to try to get someone to be motivated to do anything beyond that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think we're facing kind of a couple of things as a nation. One is, the idea of compassion fatigue. We can only, sort of get ourselves behind so many different things before we just kind of hit a wall.
No doubt. And, no doubt.
And I think the second is, we, in a lot of ways, I think what concerns me is people's inability to have deep conversations. If you had brought that up to me, I'd be like, dude, talk to me. Like I've never heard about this. This is so foreign to me. But we'd rather just push our head in the sand and get on our Instagram feed and try to figure out what the next cool Apple product to own is, rather than try to face up. Yeah,
because that's just so much easier. It's so much easier to worry about the next iPhone than to actually focus on some real atrocities going on in the world. Like, here's one for you. You want the next iPhone? So think about all the little children being exploited over there that's putting together that circuit board for that new iPhone that you are in demand for. Even though you still have the iPhone 6, you just bought it, but you got to get the latest, greatest thing. But you don't look at what went into you getting that new version of that phone. Then it's like, oh man, now you make me not want my phone. Well, I'm sorry if I actually woke you the fuck up. My bad for bringing you the truth.
Come on, man. I mean, in the same way, we've been talking about, medication and all these different sort of anesthetizing things. We're basically anesthetized to trivial crap. I was reading an article the other day. They were talking about like teenagers now are suffering with what they call smartphone stupor. It's like they come home and they have to sit like an addict smoking a cigarette. They've got to like sit with their cell phone and scroll through their social media to sort of get like enough of a downer that they can go back to functioning in normal day life. It's absolutely absurd.
Well, the problem is
I need to hit that Instagram, man, before I can get started, Mom.
Well, every time you hear that ping, there's a dopamine response, right? That reward pathway.
Oh, it's Pavlov's dog.
Look at it. Dude. Yeah. But people take it one step further, where they're not even waiting to get a ping; they're looking at their pages for pings.
Or they have a situation to get a ping, so they'll do things to get likes. Just so they can. It's like, dang, like yes, somebody recognized me, somebody gave me attention. Like, yeah, dude, you could have gotten that in real life too. So it becomes this thing, and it's not just teenagers. It becomes adults as well, because again, so many people have that support system. It's there, but it's not there. Because everybody feels like it's just them. So many people feel like it's just them. I know you see that a lot, even with a lot of the vets just come back. They feel like a lot of things, they feel so isolated. So when we talk about our country being so divided, but it's also very isolated as well at the same time. Yeah. So many people who, until they feel like, oh, someone thinks like me. And that's the reason why a lot of times we can't have deep conversations, because as soon as someone has an idea different from yours, then all of a sudden like, I can't even talk to you, dude. Like, why not? This is like, we're individuals. We're going to think differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. We don't all have to be, on the same side all the freaking time, because otherwise you have a nation of robots. And that's the problem, right?
Yeah. Well, and, Mike and Sincere, like I commend you guys, because you guys have taken on some fairly heavy topics. I know you guys have dealt a lot with, the human trafficking stuff, especially as it relates to kids. You guys have taken on a lot of the vet issues and had on some really great guests. So, I appreciate you guys taking it deep, and not getting the superficial stuff that would be, it'd be a lot easier to just have some entertaining hour and a half of just, shooting the shit, rather than taking on real subjects. So thanks for doing that.
My pleasure, man. It'd be really boring if we did the status quo of podcast. That's for sure.
Exactly.
I don't think we'll be doing any.
We just talked about workouts we're 194 episodes later, and we're still talking about our workouts. It's just like, nah. Yeah. There are a lot of podcasts that do that already. So, and we always tell people, it's like, hey, man, that's what you want to listen to. We have no problems. Like, go listen to those shows. It's okay. Mm-hmm. But that was never our mission with this. It's like, you know, we're guys who are pretty open-minded to a lot of things, and a lot of things interest us out there. Instead of just Mike and I talking to each other on the phone about it, we're like, you know what, this would have been a great podcast episode. We should get a podcast going so we can talk about this. I know it's not just us that thought about this thing or find this interesting. And that's what brought the show together. It wasn't like Mike and I were just sitting there talking about our deadlift workouts. Like, you know what? Man, we should make a podcast about this, man. I'm sure, you know, this would be great. Just talk about that. It was just one of those aspects of it. It wasn't going to be the deadlift show. You know, it wasn't going to be the kettlebell show. You know, some people have tried that, and most of those podcasts are gone because, again, how many episodes can you hear about that? I mean, there's so much going on out in the world. So many more interesting things. Not to say those things are not interesting, but there's so much that's out there that we don't know about, but we all have access to, but we just kind of need to be pointed in the right direction. So a lot of people may not have known about your organization. They may not have known about Transitions Global and Hope for Justice and now Veterans Path, or know about Project Child Save if someone hadn't pointed them in that direction. Like, there are some people out there that listen like, oh, man, that was heavy. Let me see what I can do. I would have never known about this because they're not going to see it in a lot of times in those mainstream media outlets out there because they're too busy trying to sell. They're too busy trying to sell things, sell fear, sell ratings, and all that. And this stuff that we talk about sometimes is not going to get these mainstream media sources good ratings because most people, they want to turn that off. They're like, I don't want to hear that. You know, but you want to hear about Trump grabbing somebody by the hoo-ha, huh? Okay. It's like, come on, dude. So, that's a lot more entertaining.
Yeah. Well, poignant day for the comment.
Well, just going back to that cell phone discussion, how people are addicted to their smartphones. We're at a Shinedown Five Finger Death Punch concert a couple weeks ago, and everyone was sitting down during Shinedown. So the lead singer goes, "This ain't the fucking library. Everyone stand up and put your phones away." You know, like one guy was filming him in the front row. He's like, "Put that fucking phone away." You know? And all the other bands did that throughout the night because these bands are fed up of it too. They're up on stage. All they see is a sea of cell phones out there.
Just blue lights everywhere. It's just like, you know, there was a time when those used to be lighters. Okay. Now it's just like, you know, a slow song comes on, everybody's putting their phone in the air and like, and they're not just doing it just to give us some light. They're actually, okay, let me record this, and now we're going to record it all in unison. I was like,
forget about lighter.
That was called bootlegging back in the day, and it was illegal to sit there and record.
You went to a Bad Brains or Kremex concert in the early 90s, the whole place was a brawl. If you were trying to film something, you were getting kicked in the face. You know? Because the whole place was just a brawl, and it was a fun time, too. It wasn't like people fighting, but it was that kind of aggressive outlet. That's what made going to those shows so much fun. But now, if they try to do a show like that, it would be a bunch of people on their cell phones. You know, somebody jumping off the stage would be kicking 10 phones. You know,
well, you can't stage dive now because no one's going to catch you because they're filming you right now. So now, like, they're ready to post it on YouTube. Like, man,
I remember falling on your ass.
Look at Jonathan Davis, you know, going head first into the floor at the Korn concert right in front of me. Ha ha! Like, you were supposed to catch him, dumbass. You weren't supposed to sit there and film it.
Now you're on an episode of Ridiculousness because.
I was in the airport. I was talking to someone about, you know, I got to see, you know, Metallica play at their first stadium tour when they, you know, back in '84 at the Cal Palace, you know, in San Francisco. And so I'm telling this guy, you know, about it, and he goes, did you get it on your cell phone?
Like, 1984, not quite.
No, not so. Yeah, I held up my giant automatic car phone that we tore out of the column. But you know, it really it says a lot about a generation. It's kind of like, you know, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make a sound? It's kind of like if I had a memory and I didn't film it, did it really happen?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what it's like now.
You know, one step further with that line of thinking, it's I want to go experience stuff for the point of posting it on social media later, rather than just experiencing it for the sake of experiencing it. That's the real challenge. Can you go do something and not document it?
Well, that's GoPro's whole thing. You know, like go have an adventure, but make sure you captured it. Otherwise, it couldn't have been real.
Like that's not sharing the adventure. Sharing the adventure is the next time you go to take that trip, you buy me a ticket too.
Right.
That's how you share the adventure. Like, okay, let's all get together and let's meet up in Colorado and go skiing together. Don't sit there and go do it and film it and then send me a video clip of it. Like, hey man, wish you were here.
Just wait. I saw an ad the other day that GoPro has released its first drone.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you can have it just fly above your experience and film you in third person.
Oh God.
Yeah, honestly, I saw that and I was like, yeah, you don't want to do that in Texas. That thing will get shot down. Goddamn aliens are flying over my house filming me. Damn it! It's either aliens or the government. So I'm like, this is not the market for that product right now, buddy.
Yeah. People are going to have a drone in front of them as they walk around their entire day filming it. And
instead of walking their dog, they're walking their drone. They just walk around with a remote in their hand. The drone's right above them. It's like, dude, you can go to a shelter and rescue a real animal. You know that, right? No. Yeah. Just filming me walking around. I'm showing everybody, I'm getting in shape. I want to show everybody me walking, doing my daily walk. Like, I don't want to watch you walk. Sorry,
here's me in my garage with my drone.
That voice sounds vaguely familiar, Mike. Oh,
well, hey man, where can people find out about all the great work you're doing?
Yeah, so they can find us at veteranspath, PATH.org, and come check us out. They can find us on all the social media channels too. But if they go to the website, they can get lots of great information. And if they're a vet and they're looking for help, have them reach out to us. I'd be more than happy to talk to them. If you're a vet organization that's doing good work, reach out to us on our website. We'd love to connect with you. Otherwise, if you're looking for an organization to support, this is an organization that's not just changing lives, it's actually saving them.
Well, that's fantastic, man. Well, as usual, you're doing great work.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Sincere. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
All right. You guys have a great day, and I'll look forward to talking with you guys again soon.
Sounds good, James.
Man. Take care, brother.
All right.
Take care.
Gents. All right.
Take care. Bye. That was good, man. It was good to catch up with James. He's always up to something interesting.
Yeah. Always making moves, man. But making moves for the better. Not just in the business of busyness. So yeah, man.
He's not making moves for narcissism.
No. It's like, it's something to be said to be of service, man. And there's so many different ways that we all can do it. So, James, he exemplifies that, man. So, if you're looking for inspiration, no one's saying that you have to go and start a nonprofit or something like that, but just so many different things out there. Be inspired by folks like James. There's something we all can do. Just like we were saying, even if you just go and there's a vet in your neighborhood, just sitting down and just talking with him. Like if you're hanging out in your garage, hey, invite him over. With me, go ahead and if he smokes a cigar, have a cigar, and just sit and just talk, man. You don't understand how therapeutic that can be, not just to a vet, but just to a lot of people, because like that human connection beyond being in front of a computer screen. It's like, wow. It's like, wow, man, you're like, that's some stuff that came up I didn't even think about up until now. And hey, I appreciate that. And then you don't know exactly how that may impact them and what they do next. It might inspire them to go do something else that's very impactful. So never shortchange how powerful you are when you're actually in the moment, like when you're present with someone. So like I said, so there's always something we can do to be better and help someone else. We can always be of service some way, somehow.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, man.
James kind of reminds me of that saying, imagine how much good you could do if you didn't worry about who got credit.
There you go. Actually, what was the verse in the Bhagavad Gita that addresses that, man, about doing the work and, not worrying about the reward?
Yeah, it's all about focusing on the action without the fruits of your labor, without worrying about the results. And then if you're not worried about the results, that's not a distraction. You're able to be fully present in the moment, so you execute the actions with perfection, and then you're going to get a better result than if you just focused on the result.
Exactly. Like I always tell people, don't worry about it, if anyone's watching. Someone's always watching. So, just do the work. That's what I'm saying. So whatever you're doing, make sure that what you're doing is good. It's adding value to wherever you are, because someone's watching, and a lot of times they're waiting for you to mess up. So prove them wrong, but don't worry about proving them wrong. Don't focus on trying to prove them wrong. Just do it.
I mean, Malone has that great line in one of my favorite movies, Untouchables. He goes, "Don't wait for it to happen. Don't even want it to happen. Just watch what does happen." Because Andy Garcia's character was he couldn't sit still. Like, he kept on checking his gun, made sure the bullets were in there. He's like, how many times have you checked it? He's like, "Oh, I've checked it 5 times." Like, you don't need to check it again. He's like, "Just watch. Don't even want it to happen. Just watch what does happen." That's what happens with often anticipation is more stressful than the execution. Like, once you have to do the execution, you're in it. But it's that anticipation that can ruin your execution because you waste so much energy in the anticipation. Sometimes, like, when you want to set a PR in the gym, let's say you're like, okay, next Friday I'm going to go for a deadlift PR. It's like, okay, great. Now between now and next Friday, I'm thinking about that. As opposed to you just go to the gym and it's any other workout, right? And all of a sudden you're doing your warm-up weights. You're like, man, everything feels fucking light today. Today's the day I'm going to go for that fucking PR, right? Because there's no wasted energy on anticipation now. As opposed to, like, okay, next Friday I'm doing do or die, I'm doing this. Well, maybe you had a crappy night of sleep the day before next Friday. Maybe you had gut issues that entire week, but you're like, you know what? Then I'm going to do it today. I'm going to do it. And then you have this crappy workout. You missed that PR by 50 pounds. You're totally demoralized. So I think there's something to be said about not wasting any energy on that anticipation stage.
Right. Exactly. Like I was talking about yesterday. Like, I was like even more focused on working on just the technique you had been talking about, really working on dipping, before I pull the bar on deadlift. And, so I'm like, okay, since I'm working with, such a low, percentage of my, my maximum, my 1 rep max, this is like a perfect time to really focus on that. And the fact that I'm not trying to think about the other crap that I had on my mind on the way over here. So that made me really dial that in yesterday. And it's funny because, like, today feels way different than any time I've ever performed, like any variation of German volume training for like the first day of that with deadlift. Today I just felt like almost like I didn't even deadlift yesterday. Like, I know I'm going to be sore tomorrow. I know my hamstrings and my ass is going to be like sore as hell tomorrow. I can already anticipate it. But for the first time, I don't feel like a little bit of a twinge or burn in my lower back whatsoever. So that lets me know, like, specifically, like, I knew my back really wasn't pulling the grunt of the entire program yesterday whatsoever. But I can also just tell just by the time I ripped it off the floor, so, but I didn't even worry about, I'm going to go in today, I'm going to do 10 sets of 3, and I'm going to do it. I wouldn't think about those things because that's something that's demoralizing. When you think you got to do 10 sets of deadlift, no, it doesn't matter how many reps you're doing. It's like, damn, 10 sets? It's a lot. Where I was more focused on, like, I'm working on that dip drive right now, so, and it helped. It helps. So,
well, I mean, I did 1,000 Hindu squats one time, right? When I was really into bodyweight training, and people always ask me, like, how long did it take to work up to that, et cetera. Now, I was doing it every day, and I just respond well to reps. But when I did that particular workout, I didn't have a goal of I'm doing 1,000 reps today. I just did 1, 2, several hundred in. I was like, okay, this is easy. I'm going to keep going. 500, keep going. But I only focused on the rep I was on. 501,
exactly.
502, 503. I wasn't like, okay, I'm on 510 now. I'm going to be on 520 soon. Now I'm on 550. It's like, no, all I focused on was one more rep, one more rep, one more rep, one more rep, and you just keep going.
Yeah. And that's pretty much all you can do. There's a lesson right there just in lifting. It's just like, don't worry about, I got to get, 10 reps of this. Like, no, let me get this one. And we learned that big time in kettlebell sport because you can't get ahead of yourself in kettlebell sport when you're doing a 10-minute set. You can't think about making it to minute 10. You can't think about, I got to hit it. I got to make sure I get to 200 today because I want to break a record and I want to get master of sport. Like, no, you have to be in that bad boy one lift at a time. Right. Because every time, and then the only thing you should be thinking about is repeat, meaning if it's a good rep, repeat that rep. Repeat it again. Repeat it again. If that was a bad rep, fix this rep right now. Don't worry about the one that was a little bit off. Don't worry about that. That's gone now. There's nothing you can do about it. So such is, how life is. You can't be sitting there worrying about the past mistakes or whatever else. It's like, all right, but what am I doing now? I screwed up. Yeah, that was just.
I mean, it's similar to Ethan Hawke in Gattaca, right? Another one of my favorite movies where Gattaca predicts the future where a lot of people are they're genetically created, right? So they're genetically created to be superior. So Ethan Hawke is not. He's born a traditional way. His brother is genetically superior. And his brother always beat him swimming. But at the end of the movie, he goes, let's go for it. And this time Ethan Hawke wins. And his brother's like, how did you beat me? And he goes, I didn't worry about how I was going to get back. I didn't save anything for the swim back. Like the whole time we're swimming out, you're thinking, okay, I can't go this far because I'm not going to have anything for the swim back. Well, Ethan Hawke was like, I'm just going to go as far as I can. I'm not worried about how I'm going to get back. Right. And because of that superior mindset, from not having these genetic gifts, he was able to beat him. Yep. Where previously he already lost. So I think a lot of times people make that mistake too. Is they're doing a workout and they're on their first exercise. I say they're doing squats. They're like, okay, I don't want to hit this third set too hard because I got to do all these other things afterwards. And that's a lot of mistake. It's like no. It's the most important exercise you're going to do that day. So give it everything you've got. If you have anything left over, go do those other things which are supplemental. If you don't, then just go home. You know? Yeah,
that's what I call dessert syndrome. It's like as soon as you sit down in the restaurant and you're already thinking about dessert, but you haven't even made it to that. You haven't even gotten your drinks yet. They haven't like, would you like anything to drink? You're already thinking like, whoo, man, I can't wait to get some of that cheesecake. I'm like, dude, you just sat down. You're not even drinking tea yet.
They're plowing through that meal like a vacuum cleaner. Like they're like, I'm going to eat this meal as fast as possible to get dessert. Like you notice that whenever you and I go out to dinner with people, they keep coming by every 20 minutes, and we still have 30%, like 50% of our plate left on there. Everyone else is done. They're on their fifth plate if it's a buffet, or they're eating dessert. Like, man, you guys are slow eaters. It's like, no, we're taking our time, man. That's what you do. Take your time.
To the dismay of the waiter at the Mint the last time I was out there a couple of weeks ago. He was like, all right, this is taking way too long. Give me the damn plate. This is a buffet. You can always go get another one. Are you finished, sir? And he's already picking it up and walking away. I'm like, well, I guess I am.
Well, I mean, they're so used to people eating so fast that when you're a slow eater, they just assume you must be done if there's a bunch of food on your plate and you're just talking. You're not actually talking and eating at the same time.
Exactly. They're so used to people, wolfing down food and being done, or people wasting food at a buffet. Like I have a pile of food that they don't plan on eating. So when the waiter comes by, they're like, oh, here, can you take this, please? Like, dude, there's a lot of food on that plate. Are you serious? And then they get up and go get another plate. I'm like, what just happened? It's like, come on. So
I mean, in the top 3 reasons of why people have irritable bowel syndrome or digestion issues is eating too fast. Right.
Yeah,
number one is food choices. You're eating a bunch of crap. So of course you're going to have, I don't care if you eat it slow or fast, you're eating crap, you're going to have gut issues. But let's say number 1, you're eating healthy food. Well, you're still going to have gut issues eating healthy food if you eat it too fast. You should actually be chewing everything 30 times before swallowing. Now, who the hell does that? I'm not even going to say I do that, but I definitely chew it more than once. Most people don't even chew it once. They just put it in their mouth.
Like, I don't even worry about the number. Like, I don't even worry about the number. What I try to focus on is trying to create as much saliva as possible. Because I know it's like, okay, I need those enzymes to help break this food down. If you're eating food and it's going down dry like that, dude, it's just not a good look, because now you put all the responsibility on your, on your gut to take care of it. It's like, give it a little assistance. And that's why you see people when they're trying to swallow, they're kind of like grabbing their chest. I'm like, yeah, it hurts because you just swallowed a chunk of meat down your chest. And so, yeah, it feels like someone's stabbing you slowly down to your stomach, man. It's like, chew that up.
And then they're drinking a ton of water with the meal, which dilutes acidity, which is also going to further complicate optimal digestion. Right. So, frankly, you shouldn't really have much. I mean, you can have some liquids during a meal, but it should be minimized. Then afterwards, have something hot, like a hot cup of tea, a hot cup of coffee. Something hot also helps with just finishing off that digestion process, ensuring optimal assimilation.
Yeah, you shouldn't be on your third refill of iced tea in the middle of your, the main course. That's either that food's way too salty, it's probably full of MSG and God knows what else.
Or way too spicy if it's Indian food.
Yeah, you're above your pay grade with spiciness. Like, nah, you weren't ready, dude. It's like, trust me, even my wife, she goes, how do you just sit there and eat? It's so spicy. How can you just keep going? I'm like, well, I've been eating spicy food like this since I was little. So I'm not impacted by that. So you get to the point, she's like, no, I got to stop because I don't feel like drinking all this water in the middle of the meal. And I'm going through it pretty much without even sipping any water. She says, that's just not normal. So. Yeah, man.
Well, I mean, normal for most people is bloating, excessive gas, constipation.
Yeah. Trust me, man. If I sit there and I eat something and then I rip one like minutes later, that food is suspect to me. I'm like, I'm already going through my head. Like, okay, what the hell was in that? It wasn't what you said it was in there, dude. And you said like, oh, it doesn't have this, and this. I'm like, you're lying. You're lying, because I know my digestive system, and I shouldn't just rip one like that. Because I know I didn't just inhale it and swallow it or anything like that. I know I chewed it up thoroughly. So, yeah, man. I don't think you know all the ingredients in your food, which, says a lot also about eating out. No matter, when you try to do your best sometimes, and think that some people are catering to the way, you eat or whatever else, you're still leaving it up to chance. It's always going to be a gamble. No matter what you think, like, no, not this restaurant. Their food is this, this, and this. Like, yeah, that's hope. That's fate. You hope that it's like that. We don't know exactly where they're buying that food. Or if that week was the one week that they kind of cut back a little bit because the budget may have been a little off, or the supplier didn't have the original food that you like that really worked in your favor. So they had to cut corners and like, well, we can't shut down just because the supplier doesn't have that specific food today. So, hey, just go and buy the cheap stuff just for the day, though. And that's the day that you showed up. Okay, so
I mean, one of the best things you can do for a physique composition is not eat out at all. Prepare all your meals, because you don't want to leave anything to chance. You want to take control as much as possible of what you're eating and what you're not eating.
Exactly. So if you're a competitor in some sort, that's the time you shouldn't be eating out for the most part, man, because it'll jack everything. You're trying to make weight for something, or you're trying to get ready for a photo shoot. It's not the day to go out, man, and eat out. Do that after whatever the event is. And that's how I guess you can celebrate that way. Like, oh, finally, I can actually just be normal and not have to restrict and do all this other stuff. So, yeah, man. So seriously, on that note, though, here's one thing you can do right now is head over to both our websites. Go over to newwarriortraining.com. Use that coupon code LLA. Get 10% off of anything that you can purchase over there. My DVD, also the weight management program, all that. So just use that coupon code LLA. And what about you, man?
Well, everyone can use that coupon code LLA. And just speaking on the topic of gut issues, a lot of you guys have crime scene toilet issues. And what you can do to address that is get some Restorezyme, load up on your enzymatic pool to not only mitigate inflammation, but also improve your workouts and improve your gut health. Because if you have excess inflammation, your gut is going to be affected negatively by that. So use that coupon code LLA. Go get 10% off Restorezyme. Get some recovery oil, improve your deep sleep. Get the testosterone booster, get your mood, your sex drive back, fuel your workouts. And for those of you that are looking for a great pre-workout mix, 2 caps of aggressive strength, 2 caps of red, an hour before you train, thank me later. One of my favorite pre-workout rituals right there. Yeah. A cup of green tea, which I picked up from you. If you throw that in the mix, you're going to amplify it a little bit further. So anyway, use that coupon code LLA. Go get 10% off now. Today, don't delay. Go do it right now.
Exactly. As we mentioned those premium episodes earlier. That's for our Patreon supporters. So head over to patreon.com/LLA podcast. Become a monthly supporter on Patreon to get access to premium episodes starting off at $5 or more, folks. And you'll get access to those episodes where we go a little more in depth on some of the things that we even brought up, while we were talking to James. We were talking about hormone optimization, even training programs, German volume training, as we discussed on the last premium episode that we have, just on how to hack that and how to adjust it and go beyond just what you've read, just the very basics of it, instead of going 10 sets of 10, other ways of using it and which situation that works best for you. We go into all that stuff, man. And so many different other topics that we go into, but like I said, a little bit more in depth, and it's just us. So again, patreon.com/LLA podcast, come up with support of $5 or more, make it happen. All right. So
don't just make a small donation, do it bigly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I said starting at $5. I see some folks come in, come with that $1. My thing is, come on, man. It's like, look at the information you're getting and then put the value on that. So, and I'll tell you, 99% of the people who are on Patreon, they see the value, and a lot of them don't even, they may start with $5, but then they'll give that Patreon bump and go up a little higher. They end up changing their monthly donation from there. And even the ones that come in with $1, because Patreon naturally has $1 sitting in the box when you first get there. And if you're one of those people who come across the show before you really listen to it and you see that, it's naturally, it says become a supporter. You click on that, with that $1 that's already there by default. But then I always see that 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, that person comes back and edits, and then they add more. They may add a 0 behind it, and it becomes a $10 monthly, support. So there you go, folks. So, and last but not least, you can always share the episode via any social media outlet that you choose, via also any MP3 or podcast app that you use as well, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, all of that, man. Share the episode. That didn't cost you anything, but maybe, 2 seconds of your time? So if you listen to the show, an extra 2 seconds is not going to hurt. All right, man. Definitely. So that's going to wrap it up for this week that's all I got to say, man. Thanks to James for coming on the show.
And great.
So there you go, folks. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Everybody.